All right. So our topic for today is refeeds versus cheat meals. What's the difference? Um, everybody gets, I don't want to say gets these two terms confused, but these terms are sometimes used interchangeably by some folks, and they're definitely not the same thing. So a pretty brief and quick overview of what a refeed is and what a cheat meal is. There is a refeed is a planned increase in carbs. We are looking to replenish your glycogen stores. The word refeed to me means that we're refilling something that is empty, right? If we're refilling the bucket of fatigue, the bucket of tiredness, the bucket of, glycogen stores are empty, the bucket of sleep is poor, hormonal production, things like that. We're refilling these buckets. So when you think of the word refeed, think of the word refill. And then refeed is also going to support hormones such as leptin, thyroid. It's going to help lower cortisol as well. And refeeds are typically going to be 1 to 3 days. This is going to be obviously client dependent, person to person dependent. Now, anything more than that, I would say maintenance is what we would call that. And you could, technically say a refeed could last 7 days, but I like to say refeeds are 1 to 3 days, and anything over that is like a planned maintenance phase. And then a refeed could help you break through a fat loss stall, and I've used this technique with a few of you on this call now. And then if we look at a cheat meal, typically this is an untracked meal. I do like to give you guys some parameters on what the untracked meal should look like. Make sure that it's full of protein. Let's set a cap on it, 1,000, 1,200 calories, somewhere in there. But typically, people see this cheat meal or a free meal, whatever that you like to call it, as a meal to where they just indulge in foods that are not typically on the meal plan. But this could lead to a mental relief, right? A very temporary relief. If you've been dieting for a long amount of time and you're just craving a hamburger with fries or whatever, and you have it, you're obviously going to get a little bit of a mental break from that. Now, keep in mind, a cheat meal is a meal. It's not a cheat day. A lot of people think they're getting a cheat meal, and that turns into a cheat 2, 3 meals, and then it turns into a whole day affair, and then it turns into, oh, I'll just start over Monday. Nope, a cheat meal is just that. It is one meal. Now, the downside of a cheat meal is it can cause some bloating, inflammation, and some disrupted momentum for days to come. So, now cheat meals. They are warranted in some aspects, right? Like I give the majority of you on this call here one cheat meal a week. I like to call them a free meal, right? Because if I tell you to eat this, then it's technically not a cheat meal, right? That's why I like to call it a free meal. But I also like to put it in your guys' heads too that if you're not on that week, if you're not doing everything that you need to be doing, morally in your head, you should be thinking, do I deserve this cheat meal this week? Or do I just need to lock in, not have it, and we'll try again next week, right? So that's just some things to keep in mind as we're going through this. So why do we need a refeed over a cheat meal? So when you diet down, your body starts adapting. Leptin drops out, that your thyroid output slows, your NEAT and your training outputs decline, and your NEAT really is going to decline just from your body just trying to conserve energy. It just is what it is. Like when I'm in prep, me, shaking my leg or, tapping my fingers or doing, any of this extra movement that I'm doing, that doesn't happen. Like I'm very still. Um, I'm not mobile whatsoever. I'm pretty much sedentary until I make myself get up and move, right? So that NEAT drops off unknowingly for a lot of people. And then, when you're dieting, those cravings, they start to increase. And that can be from, the leptin dropping out, the ghrelin rising, you're burning the candle on both ends at that point. Now, refeeds can temporarily reverse some of these effects. And that's kind of that's kind of the whole aspect of using these refeeds is again is to refill some of these things that have went down, right? But a cheat meal, it depends on what it is, but for the majority of the time, cheat meals are just going to cause inflammation, bloating, and it could cause a little bit of a spiral from a psychological effect of, oh man, this meal was so good. Let me stop by Brewster's on the way home, right? And let me get something, and then that's going to spill into the next day, and the next day, and the next day. Um, if your diet is clean 6 days a week and you're blowing 2,000 plus calories on a weekend cheat meal, then you're simply just erasing your deficit that you had for the last 6 days all in one sitting. And that's where people get frustrated of, hey, I've been great Sunday through Friday, and then I go out on Saturday night and I completely mess my diet up. Why am I not seeing results? Well, it's probably that cheat meal. That little cup of ranch that you use for your French fries is probably 300 to 400 calories. That hamburger that you ate from Chili's, which is where me and my wife went for my cheat meal this past week, it was like 900 calories, just one hamburger. So I was like, "Ugh, let me find something else." So like that stuff adds up very quickly. Now, your next question is, well, how do you run a refeed? So now, this is obviously person to person dependent. Some people can't go this high. Some people need more. Honestly, like I just did a client check-in probably an hour or so ago to where we're going to do a 7 day maintenance for this individual, and it was over 500 calories. I think his was like six, close to 700 additional calories per day, and just because of the individual, I could do that. But typically, just for trying to keep things simple, you want to raise calories to your maintenance. We'll just say 500 calories, and the majority of these should come from carbohydrates. And you can reduce protein down some to give you more carbs if you like. You don't have to. I've done that in the past. But if the person is pretty insulin sensitive and their body is like really needing a refeed, like they need a refill, right? They're low on a lot of things. Uh, their fatigue is high. They're just overly stressed out. Their strength is going down. Pull some of that protein down, and you can add in more carbs, right? Now, a couple of things to remember here is you want to use non-fibrous carbs already. Foods that you're already using, right? So example is going to be like rice, potatoes, oats, cream of rice. You don't want to throw in a Pop Tart and you have not had a Pop Tart in like 2 years, right? Into this refeed because it's gonna not give you the result that you want. To use foods that are already on your meal plan or carbs that are gonna digest easily and they're non-fibrous. Like we don't want to be adding in a bunch of green beans, a bunch of broccoli, because if you think about it too, this extra amount of carbohydrates is going to come with a ton of extra volume. And if we're adding in a bunch of voluminous carbohydrates and a bunch of voluminous veggies, we could have some gut dysfunction going on there. So now this is kind of going to go a little bit against what a lot of people recommend, but just from my personal experience on myself and with clients, um, when I give somebody a refeed, I want them to rest. I do not want them to go to the gym. I do not want them to go hit legs. I do not I want them to go do the 8 hour Rich Piana arm workout. I don't want you to do anything like that. No cardio, no workouts, just steps. And the steps are mainly just to get digestion moving and getting, that food to be utilized. Essentially, if you think about it, if we're thinking of a refeed as like a bucket, right? It's empty, it's low, and we add water to it, but we also poke a hole in the bottom of it. Well, as we're adding water to it, some is, seeping out of the bottom. That's kind of what you're doing if you're going to train on a refeed day. You're just using the extra carbs that you're giving your body to try to recover to be used towards training. And yeah, you might have a training performance uptick, but we're not looking for that. We're looking for recovery. So if you're doing a refeed, specifically like a 1 to 3 day refeed, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you to rest. No workouts, no cardio, just steps only. And the biggest thing to keep in mind is start small. If you've never done a refeed before, you may not need to jump to 500 additional calories. Maybe start at 200, right? Um, assess. That'll be the next thing that you do. So if you add in, 200 additional calories from carbohydrates and it wasn't enough, your weight dropped down, weight stayed the same, you still feel flat, fatigued, tired, maybe go up to 300. You want to adjust the amount and the frequency, as far as like days that you do this based on your response. And this is when you assess. So if we look at things, after that you get done with a refeed and you go back into your training bouts, are your lifts better? Do you have more energy? Is your digestion still up to par, even with the additional foods added in? How did your weight spike up? Did it spike up 1 to 2 pounds, or was it 5 to 10 pounds? How's your visuals looking? Are you more fuller? Are you vascular, or are you softer and flabbier? So a couple, rules of thumb here. If the client drops weight and they look harder, like they look tighter, they look fuller, they look harder in an essence, they were likely pretty depleted. And you could add in another refeed. So if you do this for one day, they send you check-in pictures the morning of the refeed. They do the refeed, and then the next day they send in more pictures, and they look tighter, they dropped weight. Well, do a refeed the next day too. We got to make sure that we're actually refilling those buckets and not just splashing them essentially just for a day or two, and then we go right back down, because then we're not changing any of those adaptations that we're trying to reverse. If they gain weight and they look softer, back off a little bit. If you went 500, additional calories and they looked worse, maybe try 300 next time. There's always this trial and error aspect that you're going to have to do, especially with these kind of things. There is no set formula that you can look up and say, hey, a refeed is XYZ equals whatever. It's not that at all. But the end all be all is if the weight holds pretty steady and your visuals improve, then you're spot on. You could either A, run another day of a refeed, see what happens, or just, kind of go back into the deficit from there. So, who actually needs a refeed? Not everybody needs a refeed. Some people don't diet long enough or hard enough to warrant a refeed. Everybody would probably love to have a refeed, but not everybody needs one. So, you've been dieting for 6+ weeks, you're leaner and you feel more depleted, such as your fatigue is, getting worse. Your sleep is not that great. You have brain fog during the day. Digestion is not that great. Things like that. You're depleted essentially. Your strength is dropping out a little bit. Your biofeedback is declining, such as sleep, libido, recovery, digestion, kind of things that I mentioned above. Um, and if we're seeing stalls on the scale, and you're pretty much spot on with everything, then we could maybe use a refeed to help kind of kickstart things back into action. And now, if none of that applies, if you feel pretty good and you're not doing any, and you're seeing none of the signs or the symptoms above, you probably don't need a refeed yet. And typically, a lot of people don't need a refeed. It's the people who are very, very lean who needs a refeed. And the people who aren't very, very lean, they typically just need 5 to 10 days return to maintenance. And it's not as hard of a push as a refeed is, but it's still a bump in food. It's just not as severe. Um, but at the end all be all, if fat loss is slowing down despite perfect compliance, this could be the lever that you pull that can reset the system. Because a lot of people, if they get to a point to where, hey, fat loss is stalled out, they're doing everything perfect. They're 10 out of 10, right? They're doing everything perfect. And they're like, should I go ahead and pull some more food out, add some more cardio in? Well, let's step back first and let's, look at fatigue. How's your sleep? How's your digestion? How's all of these variables? And if there's some gaps there, a refeed may be necessary. And even if you just try it for one day, if it doesn't work, I mean, no harm, no foul. It's going to take a day or two for that to come back down, and then you may have to pull harder, right? But you can always try it and just kind of see what happens and just go from there. The biggest thing when doing a refeed is take notes essentially. Um, that's kind of how that I structure my clients who are in like bodybuilding prep as far as like a peak week goes. If we do a refeed 4 to 5 weeks out, I'm writing down exactly, the meal plan, how many carbs that we use, the protein, the fats. I have the check-in pictures associated with that look, and I know what the look looks like the next day. So if we hit it spot on, all we have to do is just wash and repeat, essentially. But if we need maybe more carbs in a couple days, we'll try adding more carbs. If we need less carbs in a couple days, we'll try less. So again, it's more or less trial and error of how to get there. But at the end all be all, if I had to choose in between which one to use, refeed versus a cheat meal, I'm going to say it depends, but for the majority of folks, a refeed is going to be the way to go. Really, just because it's more of a controlled increase instead of just an all-out indulgence fest, where you really risk messing up your digestive system, and really just putting yourself back 2 or 3 days trying to come off from that meal, in an essence. So I hope all that stuff made sense to you guys. Any questions at all on refeeds versus cheat meals or just refeeds in general, cheat meals, whatever?
My only question would be like on a cheat meal, is that something that you want us to, and I mean, this is the way that I kind of do it now, is like if we are going to have a cheat meal, then you kind of plan, like you kind of, I guess, try to get your macros to match for the day using that. Versus like with a refeed, you're obviously going to have like, you're kind of planning to go into like a surplus from what you were. Does
Yeah,
that
I
make
mean the
sense?
best. Yeah, I mean the best way to approach a cheat meal, if it's one that I tell you to go eat, right, is I don't expect you to be perfect, but don't pull out two meals that are about, let's say, 1,200 calories total, and then you go to Chili's and get 3,200 calories worth of food, right? Because
Right.
then you're way over. Um, there's times during the year where that's okay, like Thanksgiving and Christmas and all that good stuff, right? But on just a regular weekend to where you're gonna go to, I don't know, Outback with your friends, right? Like you got to have some sort of control over what you're doing because this a lot of people see a cheat meal as, oh, this is the last meal that I'm going to have for a while, when in reality everyone here gets one every 7 days, in an essence. So is don't treat it like the end all be all, and just you don't need that extra chips and dip. You don't need that extra lava cake. Get something that you enjoy, and just be happy that you get that,
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to put it. So,
Yeah.
but Miss Roxanne, how did you coordinate your cheat meals on the beach last week? You want to dive into that?
Yeah. So I don't always do a cheat meal every week because I know, like you said, when if I do a hamburger and fries, that used to be my go-to, but I am super bloated and inflamed like for 2 or 3 days after, and I hate that feeling.
Yep.
So that's exactly what happened this vacation. I didn't go all out. I made sure to prep all my meals. I brought everything because I knew my big meal was going to be Wednesday night. I had a few snacks here and there with the kids. I did take out a little bit of rice or my bread for my carbs. Um, but that was it. But Wednesday night, like I was extremely bloated and I felt very uncomfortable even a couple of days after. So that's why I don't always do a cheat meal because to me it's not worth it to me at all. Like to feel like
Yeah.
that days after. So I'd rather just not. I'd rather just maybe have like a little bit of extra nuts or something like that. So
Yeah. And it's funny because so me and my wife our anniversary was last week, and she wanted to go to Chili's, so that's where we went. And after we walked out, I said I don't know why we continue to go to these places because the food's never as good as I can cook it at home, and it's crazy expensive, and I leave feeling like crap because I got a regular burger and a regular fry. And I was just like, this does not taste that great, and it's not sitting very well on my stomach. I mean, and we just got done eating it, so she's kind of in agreement with me, like a cheat meal every week. If you're some person that likes to be sociable and go out and enjoy food with your friends, I get that for sure. But you also have to keep in mind too that you're risking your digestion being thrown off for several days.
Hmm.
And then also just, if we're having 2 or 3 days of bad digestion, I mean, you're pretty much cutting your week in half of what your results could be. So, that's just kind of my thought process too. So, anybody else got anything else to add?
I do have a question. So if you don't want to do cheat meals and you want to do, is it an option to do a refeed instead of cheat meals in your plan?
So what I would do is, if you don't want a quote unquote cheat meal, is I would, so let's just say if it's Saturday night and you don't want a burger and fry, but you want something different that's in your meal plan. Um, if you have the calories to do it, I would just pull the macros and just make it fit into what you already have. Like for instance, if you typically have like I don't know, like beef and potatoes or something, and you want tacos. Well, make a macro swap and make, beef with the taco seasoning in it. Go get some, tortillas with salsa and cheese or whatever, and you could make that fit into your meal plan. And essentially, that's not even really a cheat meal. It's just you're swapping out macros. Now, if you were to swap that out and do like an actual refeed, um, it's a little different. I mean, refeeds just need to be used like strategically, I guess is the best way to put that. So if you're using them just like free will, I think once you get to the point to where you actually need to use them, that effect might not be as prominent as it could be since you kind of already been using them, I guess if that makes sense. So, but great question.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if we want to use our like free meal or cheat meal, but like for me, I get decision fatigue trying to decide what
Yes.
I want for that. But I always know like if there's an occasion coming up, I want something or it feels like the kind of week for our session. Will you like ever program them for us? Like tell us what to go get?
Yeah, for
Or
sure.
can you just kind of,
Yep. I've done that before. I've even had people who would say, hey, we're going to go to this restaurant, whatever, I would like to have XYZ, what, can I have this or, how can we make this work, whatever.
yeah.
And I'd be glad to do that. The only stipulation is don't let it be that you're going out to eat Friday night at 6 p.m. and you text me Friday at 4:12. Hey, I forgot. We're going to go out and eat in an hour and 48 minutes. Can you stop what you're doing and redo this entire plan for me and give me? I'm like, probably not. Just because it's gonna, just give me a few hours heads up, essentially. I've had people do that to me in the past, and it's like, let me stop what I'm doing because they're going out to eat in an hour, right? But yeah, if you have something like that planned and you want me to like, actually tell hey, you can get X, Y, Z, or if you say, hey, I want to eat this, okay, cool. Let's look at the meal plan and what we can pull out, whatever, to make that work. I think that's what you're asking. So,
Yeah, I think there's someone like me, like something what I'm thinking of is, I like to be 10 out of 10. Um, most weeks, just especially in this gut protocol, obviously I feel better.
Yeah.
But like if I'm saying, hey, like I want to go get a free meal and I have no idea where I want to go or what to get, like because I just feel like if I take the reins off, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna want to go get something really splurgy, but I know I don't need it.
Yeah.
Just like if you ever point us in the direction of like go get a burger and fries or just go get a slice of pizza or just something, like if you program it that way or
Yeah, yeah. And like I said,
yeah,
it's just the biggest thing is just letting me know, just kind of ahead of
yeah.
time. And we can plan that. No problem at all. So like I even had a client who went to the beach like 2 months ago, and he said, "Hey, I've already got all the restaurants picked out that we're going to. Here's the three links for each restaurant." He said, "I'll eat anything on the menu. Tell me what to eat on these three menus, and I'll eat it." I'm like, well. I don't want to just tell you what to eat because I know that you probably have a preference, right? But if you want me to pick, I will pick, and we kind of, went back and forth on that. But, I was able to tell him exactly what he could eat, and kind of stay, within his macro requirement, and what foods to pull out, that kind of thing. So it works, so that, yeah, if you ever wanted to do that, just let me know and we could definitely do it.
Cool.
Well, cool deal. Um, if nobody's got any other questions, we'll wrap it up. Um, Thank you guys for tuning in. Next week's Wednesday call, I will be traveling back from the beach, but I already have it recorded, and it will be dropping at 12:30 next Wednesday. So I did not leave you guys in the dark on that one. So you guys will have a Wednesday call next week. It'll just be pre-recorded. It's only like 13, 14 minutes long, but it's a good one. So I didn't want to do it driving down the road, coming back from the beach next week. So, if you guys got any questions with anything, just let me know and we'll go from there. I'll talk to you guys soon.